going to be the board of supervisors who had to make the determination in terms of lawyers, in terms of settlement, or whatever else. But you're going to have to be able to go in court and show that you have tried to do something to better that situation. Now, you got to get some kind of expert. Dr. Jimmy Bill is considered an expert in this field to kind of give us some kind of roadmap or draft as to what we can do, what we should do. But to sit back and don't do anything and wait for these lawsuits to come in, negligence will come in next week. Thank you, Mr. President.
Dr. Walker, and then we'll hear from the sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the President and board members, I know Dr. Bell. He's a nationally acclaimed person in the area of criminal justice, and we have standing to my right a world-class law enforcement professional who knows what he's doing and can handle himself. However, I think that it may be good here if Mr. Stokes, Supervisor Stokes, and the sheriff, along with Dr. Bell, might get together and confer as to what kind of vision the sheriff has for a fix at the jail and what kind of things can be done, what Dr. Bell may be able to do, and then let some report come back to this board rather than have a statement here and the sheriff respond to the statement. I don't know whether anyone has been in touch with you about that, but I think that may be a healthy way to proceed from this point. And I say that because I know that Supervisor Stokes' intentions are good. I know the sheriff is serious about his job and is an expert at what he does. And I think that a healthy outcome and movement towards what can be embraced by everybody could take place if there was some chance for the parties to confer and then report back to this board.
Mr. President,
and I'm not trying to put
I would draw my motion, Mr. President.
Sheriff, I'm not trying to put a stopper on you this morning, okay?
Okay, Mr. Stokes has withdrawn his motion. Sheriff, would you like to comment?
I don't know, is there a need now since he withdrew his motion?
I do think that we all need to get together and talk, and I think it would be healthy for everyone, for people to talk. But if you don't want to comment, that's fine. I was just
I can't comment on what Supervisor Calhoun has said, and I think you know as well. The two new board members are not aware of it, that we do have things in place. We have NIC that's coming to do their assessment and study. We've been in constant contact with Ron Welch, who has been who's been a great supporter of ours. We have inmate advocacy group. There's a lot of other things that are in place that we have met with some of the board members and the county administrator prior to you all getting here. So I think you're being a little bit premature on bringing in somebody else that we have not seen a resume on, and would probably, in my opinion, be a waste of money. We have some things in place already that are working to make corrections in a facility that has been ailing for years.
Okay, thank you very much, Sheriff. Mr. Stokes withdrew his motion. Ms. Calhoun,
I was just going to mention that NIC does not charge us for their services.
Okay, Mr. Stokes, continue, please.
Mr. President, now again, keep in mind that Supervisor Walker suggested some meetings and get a report from Jimmy Bill.
Okay.
We'll follow up on
I'll make sure.
suggestion. Mr. President, this AIDS epidemic in this community, I don't understand how we can keep funding the health department. We can't get anyone to come and talk to us about it. We need to make sure that we know what's taking place. Now, I understand the secrecy of you can't disclose people's health issues, and I can understand that. But to have people knowing they're infected and affecting other people throughout this county is absolutely wrong. And it's got to be something that should be done, that can be done. to get the health department and the community on one accord, because it's just not right that people know they have this virus and they go in and they're infecting other people, young and old, because they mad at the world, and then they'll leave a message talking about what happened in the world of AIDS. That's not right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Have you requested someone in the past come? Or?
We have, Ms. May, how many times? Several times.
We'll send a letter this particular week, and I'll try to meet with someone to see if we can get someone here, because I don't think it's something we need to talk about.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Continue on. Do you have anything else on you?
No, that's it for me, Mr. President.
Okay. We'll now go to the county administrator, acting in her stead, Mr. Ray Bryant. Mr. Bryant.
President Graham and board members, we have two remains, two bodies representing the barrel.
Okay.
Correct now.
Three unclaimed bodies. Okay, what's the pleasure? It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. Mr. Stokes?
Mr. President, we have a young lady here on this item, Jackson State. We had brought this item up several times. Dr. Could you come to this microphone?
Okay, hold, let me finish one particular vote and then we'll go. Yeah, I mean, you can come look.
This is on the unclaimed bodies.
This is all of
Yeah, this is unclaimed bodies.
Okay, okay.
What we did, Mr. President, we brought up about those cemeteries. And I brought up the one in Jackson State and also the cemetery in West Jackson, where we almost to the point where the bodies are being, the erosion that's coming from the cemetery exposed in some of the coffins. And lo and behold, I met Doctor, introduce yourself.
I'm Dr. Johnny Griffin, a sociologist at Jackson State University.
And what happened, Mr. President, she had done the research, and the research shows that it's the county's responsibility, and she has the law. Doc, could you put parts of the law in?
Okay. I'm very glad to see the sheriff here because it does involve the sheriff's department. I'd like to very briefly read something. It'll take about 2 minutes to read to just show you what I'm talking about. Okay. When I first began to teach at Jackson State University in the fall of 2008, my attention was drawn to the cemetery that I drove by each day that I arrived on campus. The disarray of the Mount Olive Cemetery was obvious, and none of my colleagues had given me any information about it. After personally touring the cemetery, I felt compelled to find out more about it. I received information from the City of Jackson Cemetery Division and the Mississippi Department of Archives and History. After several meetings with staff from that department, one of whom was an archaeologist, they toured the cemetery with me on Monday, April 13th, 2009. Since that time, I've discussed the condition of the cemeteries with many people. I have given only one formal lecture about Mount Olive Cemetery, that was on February 24th, 2010, at Turning Point Mission Center for their Black History program. In January 2013, I was awarded one of Jackson State University's Presidential Creative Awards for faculty and staff. My award is to study and raise the awareness of abandoned cemeteries and to encourage the increase in the interdisciplinary participation of JSU faculty and students in the growing interest of sociological burial grounds. According to the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, there are approximately 1,000 cemeteries in the state of Mississippi. Mount Olive Cemetery is one of them, and it's adjacent to Jackson State University, purported to be the only major university in Mississippi. Mount Olive Cemetery is also, other neighbors are COFO, which is the Council of Federated Organizations, the NAACP, and Masonic Temple. Mount Olive Cemetery is located on the street named after John Roy Lynch, who was a Mississippi U.S. representative from 1873 to 77 and from 1882 to 83. Mount Olive is the resting place of Jim Hill, one of the first African Americans elected to state office in Mississippi, for whom Jim Hill High School is named. Also, it possibly contains the remains of Ida Redmond, a relative of Hiram Revels, who was elected U.S. Senator in 1870. Mount Olive Cemetery was awarded a certificate of historical significance by the Board of Trustees of the Department of Archives and History in 1974 after a request by Robert Major Walker, who is now a supervisor, and at that time he was assistant professor of history at Jackson State University. Another significant cemetery in Jackson is Greenwood, and is maintained by the Greenwood Cemetery Association. This integrated cemetery dates back to 1823 and contains the remains of John Roy Lynch. On July 1st, 2013, I had the opportunity to speak briefly with Supervisor Stokes, who expressed an interest in knowing more about the role of state boards of supervisors and county sheriffs in the preservation and maintenance of abandoned cemeteries. Prior to my brief talk with Superintendent Stokes, I had spoken to City Councilman Charles Tillman about Mount Olive Cemetery and showed him pictures of the dismal condition that I found and I've recorded on my iPad. He also expressed interest. The Keep Jackson Beautiful organization is dedicated to changing attitudes and behavior toward environmental issues, and I hope we can dedicate our efforts to improve the infrastructure of cemeteries, abandoned cemeteries, especially in Hinds County and perhaps our state of Mississippi. There are two laws that there's a Mississippi Code of 72, which was amended, Section 39-5-19, restoration and maintenance of abandoned cemeteries. Upon the official certificate of the trustees of the State Department of Archives and History that any abandoned cemetery of historical significance and should be repaired, rehabilitated, and maintained as a historical monument, the boards of supervisors of the respective counties in this state are hereby authorized and empowered in their discretion to repair, rehabilitate, and maintain any such cemetery within the borders of the county over which such board has jurisdiction. The Mississippi Code of 1972, which was amended, Section 47-5-441, use of county prisoners to preserve and maintain certain historical cemeteries and use of county prison labor to prepare and serve food in the let me start all over again. Any sheriff or his designee may use any person who has been convicted of a nonviolent offense and who is serving all or any part of his sentence in the county jail to clean, clear, stabilize, preserve, maintain, and restore historical cemeteries in the counties. So, this is a very serious matter, and many people walk past these cemeteries and pay no attention to them. And I, from my research, the Board of Supervisors has the power to do something. The Sheriff Department has the power to do something. I foresee the use of prisoners, especially being used to train and trained to preserve, to maintain the cemeteries, which will give them opportunities to have jobs afterwards. Also, youth can be used to do work in these cemeteries. Working with this cemetery idea helped me to understand that my own mother was in an unmarked cemetery in Illinois, and this helped me to go back and put something on her cemetery, on her grave. Also, she's in a cemetery in Illinois that black people were not allowed to be buried. They had to pass a law to get them to be buried. And I used to wonder why they sending people back to Mississippi who lived in other places to be buried. But if we're going to have people buried in the cemeteries, we need to take care of them. But they have been dead, buried, and forgotten, and I hope we can do something about that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Mr. Stokes, continue.
Mr. President, I'm glad Dr. Walker's here. In reading this law, and it's two laws, 39-5-19, that give us a lot more authority to correct what's been done with a lot of these abandoned cemeteries throughout Hinds County. Now, under 47-5441, it put the ball in the sheriff's court. The only thing is that under this particular law, they want the cemetery, historical cemeteries, they want the cemetery to be at least 100 years old. And some of these cemeteries may not be. But on the 39-5-19, Mr. President, I asked our principal legal to look at both of them. One is 39-5-19, the other 47-5-441, that we get some kind of idea of how we could and what we can do to make necessary improvements to a lot of these cemeteries. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. Okay? All right, we need to carry the motion on the unclaimed bodies. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Mr. Bryant, continue.
We seeking approval for a new special project officer position to be assigned for the District 4 Supervisor's Office on a part-time basis. And I'll refer any questions to Ms. Parker.
Okay.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. All right, Mr. Grant, continue please.
Next, we have the General Reporter, Director of Permit and Loan.
Mr. Porter, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, Board of Supervisors. Just so happens I'm bringing case number U-1720 Robert and Linda Beasley requesting a conditional use permit to allow a family cemetery. This consists of 0.52 acres located on the north side of Adam Lake Road between Adams Station Road and Peach Orchard Road in District 2. This was presented to the Planning Commission. They granted this petition based off of a vote of 6 yeas. They recommended this petition to the board based off of 6 yeas, 1 against, and 1 member was absent. There was no public opposition.
So moved.
Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Could you make sure that Supervisor Hunter gets all that information as it relates to that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bryant, continue please.
Next is Ms. Mickey Parker, Director of Personnel. She has nothing. Mr. Clarence Williams, Director of Human and Capital Development.
Mr. Williams, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, board members. I have 4 items for your consideration. The first is approval and authorization to submit a Mississippi Community-Oriented Policing Services in-school grant application to the Mississippi Department of Education Office of Safety and Orderly Schools. The purpose of the grant is to provide funding to provide a presence in and around primary and secondary schools through the use of school resource officers. The grant requires a 50-50 match. The Hinds County Sheriff proposes to meet this match requirement with reimbursed funds from the Hinds County School District for SROs.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
So,
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Mr. President.
Question for Mr. Stokes.
The school resource officers, this particular grant will generate how many?
8.
It's going to be 8. And we're going to split the salary between this grant and what?
Well, the grant will pay half, and the funds that I mentioned here that the sheriff has said they will provide the match to. There will be reimbursements for the SRO, from what I was told.
Okay. And the grant is coming through what funding agency?
The Mississippi Department of Education.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Supervisor Walker. Hunter.
This is just primary and secondary school. Does it include high school too?
Yes, sir.
Secondary would be.
Secretary, yes, sir.
All right. It's been moved and
Do we have a
properly.
salary, Mr. President? Do we have a salary?
I don't know if it's associated with that.
I don't even.
Okay. We can ban it out and make that
This same thing that's been going on forever, right? Ain't no change. This is the same way we've been doing it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Continue, please.
The next request is a board order accepting a grant from the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality in the amount of $22,378 for the county's unauthorized dump site cleanup program.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of? Opposed to? Motion passes.
Is that B, Mr. President? I have something different.
What?
That's a supplemental
Yeah, I have
agenda. That's another item.
Oh,
I read them out of order, but
it's all right. All right. No problem.
All right. Continue, please.
the third is to request a board order accepting a grant for the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality in the amount of $60,000 for the county's waste tire collection program for small quantity generators of waste tires.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
And the final one is approval of an interlocal cooperation agreement between the City of Jackson and Hinds County, Mississippi for the 2003 Edward Burns Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, and authorize the board president's signature.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Question for Mr. Stokes.
What's all involved in the interlocal agreement?
Every year we get the JAG funds are awarded to Hinds County and the City of Jackson. They are the agency that administers the grant because it's actually sent to them and we are included. After the city takes 10% off the top for admin, the balance is divided between the county and the city. And in the past, that amount that the county get is split equally between the DA, the public defender, and the sheriff's department.
How much are we looking at?
It's a little over $100,000. They'll be getting something like about $35,000, a little bit more than that each. It's really, the amount has been going down annually, but they use it for things like equipment, for vehicles, vests, for whatever items that those particular departments feel they need for that year. Then we submit our application to the city, and they forward it along with theirs.
When you say equipment, can we use it for automobiles?
Yes, they bought cars with it before. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Bryant, continue.
Next, we have Mr. Timothy Lewis, purchasing clerk, but I believe Latasha Martin House is going.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, fellow board members. I'm here today. The Sheriff's Department has submitted a request for the T-shirts and other promotional items associated with the National Night Out event. The National Association of Town Watch is the sole source of obtaining these items. A letter of certification is attached, and you should have a copy of the packet that I sent out. The amount of the order is $9,691.36, including a $94 shipping cost.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. President.
Question for Mr. Stokes.
Thank you. And I know we asked you last week, could we not use local companies to do this work?
No, sir.
What reason not?
Because the Association of Town Watch, they have a patent on this. We cannot change the logo, and we would not be able to use the National Night Out, language, logo, anything associated with that if we used another event. And this is nationwide. This isn't just in Hinds County.
I see Dr. Ross.
Okay, Dr. Walker.
I had some questions when we met on the first, and those questions were answered. And I'm now in a position to move that we accept this. If such a motion is in order.
Okay, the motion is in order. It's been moved and it's been properly seconded. Discussion from Supervisor Hunt.
I'm in agreement with Dr. Walker. I looked at the quantity and the amount of T-shirts.
Okay. Supervisor Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the attorney for giving me this information. Part of it reads that NATW and National Night Out name, logo, themes, and artwork are federally registered trademarks of the National Association of Town Watch. And said that NATW is the sole distributor of all National Night Out property. Now, that brings me to my question. Is that the only people that we can use?
Yes.
We can use other people who support anti-crime?
We would have to actually change the whole event. It would not be called National Night Out. We could not use any part of the logo. We could not change even variations.
Is that not a monopoly?
Yeah. They have a registered patent on it. Because of that reason, they can do that.
Not voting, Mr. President.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of? Opposed to? One not voting, motion passes. Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes, Mr. President, I would just like to recognize one of our community activists, a young lady that works very hard in the community, and she works for a cause. And her last call is to help fight breast cancer, to prevent breast cancer, and that is Miss Stephanie Parker. Good morning, Stephanie. Good morning.
Glad to have you here. Stephanie, continue, please.
My last item is a bid recommendation approval for the Integrated Mosquito Management Program. During our recent solicitation for bid, the Integrated Mosquito Management Program, the purchasing department has provided a list of suppliers with the lowest bid. Actually, we had one bid. Therefore, we are requesting your approval on the vendor for the lowest bid for the Integrated Mosquito Management Program, which is vector disease control. I have sent you a packet, and I'm asking for your approval on this.
Mr. President, I
Let me go ahead and go with Mr. Stokes. He wanted to
Thank you.
talk about this. Go ahead, Mr. Stokes.
Mr. President, I move that we reject all bids. I think that's part of the contract, and my reason is, from talking to Ms. Woods, we were looking at, what, 100 and... How much was it? Going to be Ms. Woods?
For this fiscal year, it will be $130,832 is the December.
$130,000.
Actually, that amount has changed.
I'm sorry?
Actually, that amount has changed. For the rest of this year, that amount is actually $81,750. $750.
$750. Okay, and Ms. Woods, you had what, 130,000 and what?
$800.32 on Friday.
Yes, but that
Okay,
has
you had
changed.
that on Friday, and that's one reason I'm asking Mr. President that we reject all bids, and that's part of the contract. And let's open this process back up. The reason I'm asking that we reject all bids, at one point we received notices that the airplane issue was taken out. Some wonder why was it ever put in, and then we received some kind of notice that something else was excluded out, which was a deal with the car situation, and it just muddy up the water to move forward now. My first motion is to reject all bids. I so move.
Okay, it's been moved. Before let me do that, go to Supervisor Hunter, then we'll come back to the motion. Supervisor Hunter, you have something you want?
Yeah, I just want to comment a little bit about it. I was reading some of the information on this process, and Mr. What's your name? Mr. Wiggins kind of brought me, gave me an update on it, and I'm still trying to get it in my mind what I'm doing. It's not an eradication of mosquito type service, and then the service areas that kind of jumps out at me, kind of concerns me, is that it's service non-incorporated areas. That means
It's supposed to be in platted subdivisions, is it not?
No, it's unincorporated. Unincorporated. Continue, Supervisor.
What areas are we serving? We're not serving, even in the unincorporated area, we're not on public, we're not on private land, we just driving down road easements or something of that nature.
Public right away.
Okay.
But then the other thing that jumps out at me, you got a kind of graduating scale on the price. We started out, I think we looked at 130-something thousand, and then we went to 100, we prorated it, and now you're saying we at 80-something thousand, and then the next year or so we'll be at 190,000. And I don't know the metrics of measuring of the success. How do we measure the success of this program? Do we measure by how many people get ill from a mosquito-borne disease, or do we I think Mr. Williams mentioned something about GPS. How do we track a mosquito with a GPS? Do we put it on his wing?
You put a little chip in there.
They catch it.
I've been following the mosquito situation for some time, and my concern is that is it going to be effective? If we have a storm, let's say we have a storm coming from the coast, and you ever familiar with love bugs, these black bugs? Every time the wind blows during the hurricane season, we're infested with these things. So we spray here and the wind blows,
Okay.
what we got a problem. So that's my issue.
Okay, Mr. Williams and Mr. Jackson, I think they were individuals that did this particular bid. Do you want to respond? Come to the podium, please. Because I do know there's some questions regarding it, and whether or not you're able to answer those questions.
We brought our GPS too.
And then what we'll do is we'll see if we have a motion on the floor from Supervisor Stokes, and then we'll go to that for a second.
But sir, when I was explaining to you the GPS, it had to do with trap locations, so we would always be able to go and find those traps to know where those mosquitoes were, and you would be able to do it through GPS, not trapping individual mosquitoes and attaching them. That was not the intent. But we're not talking about mosquito spraying. Mosquito spraying is actually the last resort. We're actually talking about a year-round integrated mosquito management program that includes year-round testing for larvae to try to destroy those things in the water before they ever get airborne. And if you don't have traps and all those other things, you don't have any idea of really knowing what it is that you have or how to treat them. There are only 4 types of mosquitoes that are associated with West Nile, but if you don't do trapping and do all the other follow-up, you have no way of knowing where they are or when they're in your community. So we're not just talking about spraying. It's a year-round program that involves all those activities. The only reason that aerial spraying was included in there might be a circumstance where we, on the emergency, have had to do that, and that was just an option that we allowed all the companies to bid on whether or not they had that and whether or not they wanted to include it, and to give it as a fixed price separate from the overall integrated mosquito management program that we are trying to do.
All right,
Good morning. Yeah. Good morning, Supervisors. When we first put this package together, first off, Clarence went to get certified so that somebody in the county knew what was going on. He got certified, we put the package together, we investigated a lot of things that are being done in other areas, and really how to control the West Nile virus throughout and working with the CDC. Dr. Presley gave Clarence some very good information. The bid and the bid packet that was put out was structured around that. Then when we did put the package out, and the reason that we reduced the items, the 2 items in particular, Supervisor Stokes spoke about, was you couldn't get anybody to qualify other than one vendor that bid on it. You had 2 other vendors. Those vendors are out of state, and they would not go forth with the bid because they could not put the assets here that was needed in Hinds County to fulfill this. In doing so, we did some other investigation, we did some other work. First off, you have Raymond and Edwards, which is 2 cities in this county, and the city of Jackson that is using this process. You also have 587 square miles in your unincorporated area that is not being covered by anything at this point in time. With that, the county of Harrison put out this very same bid, all right? The numbers that the county of Harrison received for this process is $409,000 a year, which, yes, granted, they have a little more populated area, but in taking that and comparing it to their miles against Hinds County's miles, you're looking at that cost would still cost you $300,000 a year based on the same pricing that they receive. In conjunction with this, the reason you received the $81,750 is because when we originally put this bid out, it had to be adjusted on a prorated scale for the remainder of the year. There's only 5 months remaining in the year, and your basic price for your next 2 years is $196,200, which of course if you prorate that out by months, then that's how the $81,750 came about.
Okay.
We also,
Go ahead.
go ahead. We also have the vendor here that can explain in detail, if you'd like to hear from them, as far as this abatement program. It is being used widely across the state, widely across other areas, and it's very effective. One of the requirements in there is that they provide this board a report every other week as far as the mosquito population and what is out there and what is possibly out there, and the reduction. The aerial spraying, as an example, and the Supervisor Hunter brought up about the love bugs and et cetera, if we had a hurricane. If aerial spray is needed, they will still use aerial spray. And in order to also qualify for this bid, there's several licenses required by the state and the federal government now, and there's no one else in the county, in the state, that is located within the state that has those licenses.
Okay, we go with Dr. Walker, then Supervisor Stokes.
So we're talking about a multi-year contract?
Yes.
How many years?
It's for the remainder of 2013, 14, and 15.
And it goes from 81 to 196 for the next 2 years?
That is correct. On the next 2 years, that 196.2 is per year.
To me, it seems like there's some kind of disconnect. And I think that things need to be connected. All of us need to be on one accord in terms of what the amount is going to be and all of that. How many bids were received on this? Just one?
There was one vendor that was received that qualified. There's only 3 other vendors in a 6-state area that would qualify. And out of that, 2 of those are based in Louisiana, and they did not want to invest the assets here in the state of Mississippi, and so they could not bid.
So the one bid you received was Mississippi-based?
Yes, Jackson, and they have a Jackson location on Foley Street. Yes.
And I'm still concerned about the disconnect.
The disconnect, are you talking about the dollar amounts? Is that what you're asking?
The dollar amount, yes.
Okay. The dollar amount, when we originally put the bid out, we were...
And then, excuse me,
Okay.
I think Ms. Wood said one figure came in on Friday. And when was the closing date for the bid? The closing date was Friday? Okay.
No, that's when I spoke with the owner and got the price that he had given. I assume he had given it to you earlier. He gave me the price. So.
The price she has is the original bids that were taken. We took this bid in June, okay? And of course, since then, June and July has passed. So the vendor is going to prorate the amount. And if you took the $130,000 and calculated that out, you're going to come up with your monthly figure, which you have to prorate basically on 196.2. Okay? And if you take that number, it brings it down for the remainder of the year to the $81,750.
I see a disconnect. I think the gap needs to be closed.
Okay, Mr. Williams, then we're going to Supervisor Stokes.
When we started this process, I attended the Mississippi Mosquito and Vector Control Association's spring workshop, and I used information that I got from this, along with this letter that I think each of you got from the State Department of Agriculture, and these were the documents I used and the materials I got to guide my putting together the RFP in the first place. And if you follow these guidelines, you have to adhere to these, and it's not something that we have any wiggle room around. And state law says These services must be performed by a licensed professional according to the regulations of Professional Service Law Mississippi Code 1972, Section 69-19-1 through 69-19-15, and corresponding regulations. And there are also all kind of penalties associated with whomever it is not having this, as well as us getting into trouble with EPA if that person is not qualified and they're doing chemicals that harm other things in the environment other than those insects, then we're the one responsible as opposed to that vendor. So I spent 2 days at this workshop, and that's what the information came from when I put together our RFP.
And one other thing I'd like to add to that is we did request a bid bond and also a performance bond throughout the term of this contract, which the vendor did place a $20,000 bond originally on the bid, and that will convert to a performance bond for the term of the contract.
Okay, Supervisor Stokes.
Mr. President, I guess before I get to my question, I'll make my statement first. We've had people who sprayed in the city of Jackson and sprayed in the county. No performance bond, no bid bond required, and they perform their job. It makes you think, and you've heard this over and over again, that they're trying to make people not qualified for the work. Anytime blacks try to do work, they always bring up, put some in the game to make sure they don't qualify. Then they say, we can't find any blacks that's qualified. And that's nonsense. If people have been doing the work all these years, then why do you change the word and everything else to make sure people can't perform? And then you say, well, we did this, the bid package, and put all these things in their airplanes, and Noah, how many black people got airplanes that can spray? Even if you don't, well, we didn't mean it, well, it's in the contract. And that and it make you wonder, whether this was a serious effort to try to get a company in here. Secondly, how can you spray you in the county and you 300 yards away from homes and the stuff spraying? That could go anywhere. How can you guarantee the people in the rural area that they're going to get the coverage they need? And you talking about a company that's never done work in this population before, and then you're talking about the areas in Hines County with mayors, you're not going to do anything. So you charging us all this money for less than, less than 20,000 people? How many people?
He just wrote us that.
Mr. President, we talking about this in the rural area by itself. Is it less than 20,000?
Yeah, 30,000 plus in the unincorporated area, sir. And we're not just talking about spring, we're talking about a year-round program that includes every step in the life cycle of the mosquito.
I understand that, but we're talking about 30,000 people, and we're charging $190,000 beginning in the next 2 years. And this year we're going to charge $81,000 for 30,000 people. Now you do the math. I still have a motion, Mr. President, to reject all bids. Let's start this over, and I have some more motion.
Okay, Mrs. Catlin.
Are you saying that we now have new state regulations in regards to mosquito spraying?
Not just state, but also federal, particularly from the EPA, yes.
Could you disseminate that information back to each board member, please?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments regarding this particular issue? There's a motion on the floor from Supervisor Stokes that we reject the bid. It's just one bid. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Okay. Motion passes. Okay.
Mr. President, I have another motion if I can make it now.
Supervisor Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to, and I don't know if we need to send it back to this group, or we need to get the county administrator to work directly. We were trying to let's get the full impact of another company, of companies looking at it without trying to exclude anybody. But while we wait for that to happen, I move that we hire Mr. Hawthorne. I think we paid him $17,000. How much was Ms. Newman?
It's up to 1765.
Now, I haven't asked him, I hope you'll take it that we'll pay him that amount of money for the next 3 months and give us time to work on the new bid and give us time to make sure we have a spirit spring. That's my motion, so moved.
Okay, it's been moved. Before we go to Ms. Calhoun, got a button on Ms. Calhoun?
Yes, my question to Mr. Williams is this. With new regulations, when do they take effect?
They already in effect.
And what is the penalty, again, to the county if we hire a...
Starting out $5,000 for each offense.
Well, Mr. President, could we ask Mr. Hawthorne to come forward and tell us whether or not he's legal or not?
If that's your request, we'll honor that. Mr. Williams, I also want to make sure that, have you provided each individual board member those regulations regarding the penalties as to what happens?
I'm not certain if the new ones, but in the report I did earlier, I did give it to all of the board members.
Okay.
So he has to provide.
I've been doing this work for over 27 years. I'm licensed, I'm insured, I don't know why they're telling y'all what they're telling y'all, because it's not true. I got all the information, all the license I need to continue to do the mosquito work for the county. I'm doing it now for the city. So I don't know how they can stand up there and tell y'all that ain't nobody that's qualified.
Okay.
With my follow-up question, Mr. President, was, would you do it for the 3 months that we needed for which they paid you last year?
I'll be glad to.
Okay.
And you will not have any problems out of it either. I don't know why anybody else ain't checked. But,
And you say you're spraying for the city now?
yes,
I think with the people they try to recommend, y'all doing a joint venture like that?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Calhoun, then Supervisor Hunter.
I would just like to delay taking action until such time we can do our own investigation regarding state regulation versus non-state regulation, so to speak. You say one thing and our employees are saying another, so I would just like to do my own research regarding this matter because I don't want to violate any state regulations.
Do you really think I've been doing this type of work for 27 years?
Yes.
And not be licensed to do
Yes,
what
sir,
I
I
do?
understand. But what's facing us are new state regulations. And I just,
It's
I
no new state regulation. I don't know how they can sit there and tell you that publicly. I really don't.
Okay.
I'm not going to vote.
Just a second.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, one of the things I'd like to weigh in on this, the fact is that we have two individuals telling us two different things. I think that we do have, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to vote to wait until I make sure that I have the right information. If we waited this long, we can wait another 2 weeks because of the fact that I had heard before that we'll be fined the $5,000, and I think that's $5,000 a day.
Correct.
If that's correct, and that's one of the things I wouldn't want to put that on the county. So I would need to make sure before I vote as to what I'm going to do, if whether or not that's actually the regulation, that's the regulation that we need to go through as it relates to this, and make sure that we're all bidding on the same thing. We don't want to include everyone, and we don't want to exclude anyone. We just want to do what's right, and that's what we're trying to do here.
I can understand.
Yes, Dr. Walker.
Let me just say this. I think Supervisor Stokes said something like $17,000 a month.
Right.
But if you add that up, that's 50 something,
Yes,
17.
that's
Yeah, which exceeds. Well, we have to bid it anyway according to state law.
Correct.
So we could not just arbitrarily hire someone, but it would have to result from a process which would require bid in this case.
Okay.
Doctor,
Am I correct?
no, sir. This is a professional service, and it does not require a mission. It's a professional service.
We're going to go to Supervisor Supervisor Hunter, then back to Supervisor Calhoun.
I think, the motion to withdraw all these and reevaluate the whole RFP. Because one of my concerns is Mr. Williams stated that it goes beyond the spray. It goes to the larval concept of managing mosquitoes. But my concern is how you measure, what measuring stick, how you know how effective it is. So I think we need to look all the way back down through the RFP. I don't have a problem with a contractor responding to the RFP because he responded to what was asked of him. However, I think there's a little gray in the request. So I think we need to get back to that.
Can I say this? In that RFP, you can write a proposal to write people in, and you can write them to write people out if you got bias. Now, it was something wrong with the way this proposal was put together. Now, I came to the pre-bid conference, and your employee had something in there concerning mosquitoes, and I asked him about it. He wrote the proposal, and he couldn't answer the question, and the other gentleman couldn't answer the question. They got the question answered from Vector, and that question was, is there no specific chemical that kill species of mosquitoes? But yet, in the proposal, they had that in there. He didn't know the answer, so that let me know that Vector had something to do with putting the proposal.
Well, I want to let's do one thing. Let's stay to the issue. I don't want to try to accuse anyone of anything or not accuse anyone of anything. I just want to stick to the issue, and the issue is mosquito spraying. And I will like to hear from Vector, Mr. Williams. I know that you put together this, but I just want to stick to the issue. The issue is mosquito spraying.
I would like to address the issue of someone accusing me of something.
Yes.
I put together this proposal because I thought it was in the best interest of the county, and I want to do what I thought was the best job to make sure the county got everything that was required. I consulted with the state health department and the CDC when I put this RFP together. It had nothing to do with Vector or anyone else. And I resent anyone accusing me of something I didn't do.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We have a couple of the supervisors, but you're calling for the questions. All right, we have a call for the question.
Mr. President?
Yes, Will.
Now, we've already voted to reject our bids.
Correct.
Now, the question now would be
The motion was to hire joint pest control
for the next 3 months.
Yes.
Now, let me make sure, because I'm ready to vote, but I think I hear someone ready to from the majority of the board. And,
We didn't get a second.
Okay. Well, we have a call for the question,
so
so
it's not second
Mr.
yet.
President, I think we have an attorney sitting there, and I think this board should be aware that the motion that is on the floor right now.
It's not on the floor, we'll have a second.
Where's the attempt? Your motion, if the motion was to pass, the motion legally will be perceived as an attempt by this board to circumvent the law of the RFQ process. And the best thing to do is just simply reject all bids until such time that we can get the opportunity to look at whether or not we must be in compliance with all of the state regulations, or if we can just ignore those regulations.
okay, and I think
So the motion, any motion other than to reject these bids, again, will be deemed as circumventing the process.
okay. I think what we're going to do here, since we have a call for the question.
It's not second yet, Mr. President.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second?
I second, Mr. President.
Is there a second? Motion dies for a lack of a second. I think that we will do this. I think in order to be fair, and this is something I know there's a lot of ideas and thoughts regarding this issue. And the only thing I want to do is to speak to the issue. I think we should allow Vector to speak, since they were the individuals that were approved for this particular item, to just let them speak to see if there's any questions that they can answer for the supervisors, and then we will go with the original motion. So if Vector would like to speak, then I want to be fair, allow Mr. Hathorn to speak, I want to allow you to speak, and then we'll go from there. We voted on the issue, then we'll continue with Mr. Bryant. But I want to make sure that we did give both ends sides an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to introduce myself first. I'm Chris New. I'm the contract manager for our contracts in Mississippi. Brett Killingsworth, he's our sales representative for Mississippi. His office is in Jackson. And Carolina Jones, she's our contract supervisor for our Jackson business, and would have been for Hinds County. Our bid was rejected, so I'm just going to speak now as a mosquito control professional and answer some of the questions that were brought up. Supervisor Hunter brought up the question about how do you gauge effectiveness of a mosquito control program. That's one part of a integrated pest management program is surveillance. That's one of the main parts of a program. You have to know what species are present in order to know how to control them. There's different species of mosquitoes. Some bite during the day, some bite in the evening, some bite in the morning. Some don't even bite humans. They come out at different times. If you don't know those answers, you have no way of knowing any kind of efficacy of your program. I know in the past y'all have had a spray program. That's kind of gone away, where you just spray, just because it's the summer and Monday through Thursday we're going to spray. We have no idea what mosquito numbers, what's out there. Those have gone away. That's not proper mosquito control. It's not being a good steward of the environment. We set surveillance traps around the county. Depending on those numbers, we target those areas depending on what species we see. We target it with our larvicide, and we would target it with our truck adulticiding. And as the year goes on, you have surveillance graphs that show you the ups and downs of the mosquito pressure, and you can see how it's affecting your program based on your larviciding and truck spraying and stuff like that. The question was also brought up about the legality and licenses required. As of 2009, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals overruled a previous ruling that allowed mosquito control to be exempt from the Clean Water Act. And they gave mosquito control professionals 2 years in order to comply with that. And as of 2011, that ruling in April 2011 took place to where all mosquito control practices have to be justified and based on surveillance. You have to, all your truck records, you have to have GPS tracking in your trucks that show where you sprayed, when you sprayed, how much product was applied, how fast you were going. It shows exactly where you were and how much you were spraying to document the pesticide that you apply. Any larvicide sites have to be documented. You have to first dip and prove that there's even larvae in that particular body of water before you apply any pesticides to it. Some bodies of water don't hold mosquito larvae, so you have to. What?
No.
Oh, okay. You have to. Identify that there's a problem before you even apply pesticides to the environment. You have to do proper calibration checks on your equipment. You have to perform chemical resistance test to perform that, to show that you're not getting resistant to certain types of chemical. which can happen, it does happen here in Mississippi, especially in the Delta area. It's a lot of added paperwork and burden on mosquito control professionals, but it's the proper way to do mosquito control because it makes you justify applying pesticides to the environment instead of just running a spray truck down the street with no records or anything, which is what the county has had in the past and what the city of Jackson has had in the past is a spray program. It's different than an integrated mosquito management program. It's not the same thing.
Okay. Supervisor Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do you currently spray for the city of Jackson?
We do.
Do you spray the whole city?
No, sir. We spray the north half of Jackson.
Who sprayed the other parts of Jackson?
Mr. Hawthorne.
So you and Mr. Hawthorne currently spray the city of Jackson?
Yes, sir.
If he was illegal or something, will you bring it up to public works with the city?
No, I worry about what we're doing in our half of the city, and I'm not going to get into a mud, slinging argument with him. I don't know what he
But you're telling
does.
us in here today he's illegal. You telling us in here today that he's illegal?
What you have had in the past, as of 2009, if I'm right, was the last time y'all had a full year mosquito spraying program, and yes, that is not legal anymore as an EPA NPDES permitting. That's the National Pesticide Discharge Elimination System permitting that was put out by the EPA and then adopted by the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality.
What are you doing different than him?
In Jackson, we've gotten into the city of Jackson and started working with them in 2009. I've convinced the city that we need to add surveillance to what we were doing to see what mosquito species.
Okay, well, we have Mrs. Calhoun, then Supervisor Hunter.
You all have separate contracts, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. It's not a joint venture, it's completely separate.
Okay, Mr. Hunter.
I'm back to the question of, you say that EPA regulated that mosquito spraying and stuff have to fall under the Clean Water Act in 2009.
2009 is when the ruling took place. They gave mosquito control professionals 2 years to come into compliance, and as of April 9th, 2011 is when that came into effect. Kenneth Lord is the contact person with the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, and don't take my word for all this. I mean, I'm a gator.
But my point is this: you spraying it in unincorporated areas, and in my mind, all I see is basically county roadways. But I also see private property. Everybody, mostly in the rulings, got a body of water of some sort. I'm just trying to understand how will we be combating those areas.
Well, there's 5 parts to integrated mosquito management program, and that includes source reduction, larviciding, adulticiding, surveillance, and public education. So you take in all those different accounts. You look for places that are breeding mosquitoes, and if you can eliminate that water site without even applying any pesticide, you'll never get away from running the spray trucks. That's part of it.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just still stuck with private land versus public land.
Well, one part of our programs is we do service requests. We take calls from residents, and if a particular resident of the county calls and allows us to go into their yard, we can go on their yard and look at specific places on their private property that might be breeding mosquitoes.
Okay, there are no more questions. Thank you very much. I guess we'll get with the county administrator. We'll determine where we're going to go from this point. Thank you very much. Mr. Bryant, if you would, just go ahead and continue.
Ms. Woods, Budget and Finance Coordinator.
Good morning, I think. Steele, County Warning.
Okay, good morning, President Brown and members of the board. I have one item for your consideration on the budget and finance, and that's the approval of the funding agreement for the Jackson Music Awards. And under that agreement, they would like to be exempt from the dual funding clause.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Mr. Bryant, continue.
There's no emergency purchases, admitted insurgents as listed.
Thank you very much. We will now go to the Office of the Board Attorney. Ms. Prince, good morning. Or is it still morning?
Good morning, Mr. President, fellow board members. We have one item for your consideration this morning, and that is a lease renewal for the SWW Properties LLC. This is a lease for the parking lot that's currently being used for the county for prospective jurors, and it's located adjacent to Allen House.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
The amount is the term of the lease is for 2 years, beginning August 1st, and the monthly rental to be paid is $2,000 per month.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. President,
Questions?
I thought move instead of 2 years, we do it for a year. I really like it rather 6 months or a year, man. Pay for 2,000 a month. How many parking spaces are we talking about?
I'm not sure exactly how many parking, but it's the parking spaces where the individuals park, the prospective jurors, and everyone park for the circuit clerk court.
And some county employees.
And some county employees. Do you know if we can amend that contract to for a year?
I can even speak with them, and I see that as a possibility, yes.
Is it dated to where we have to approve this at this particular meeting, or can we check and request and to see if we can comply with the supervisor's request?
It actually expires on July the 31st. So I think this month is when it expires.
Okay. And I think our next board meeting is on the August 5th.
So you won't have a contract.
Okay.
Could we possibly make a motion to approve it pending that change? I don't see it as being material in terms of getting it changed.
All right. Before we do that, it's been moved. And properly second, Mrs. Calhoun.
We are always put in a situation where contracts are expiring at the end of the month, and that those contracts are being presented to us at the last minute. I would like to see some procedure established to present us contracts that are due to expire prior to the same month. Is that part of case management?
Well, ma'am, that's not part of case management, and the Office of the Board Attorney is not the official record keeper for the county. We work with the different departments in terms of when the contracts expire. What we can do is make a more assertive effort to work with the departments to make sure that we get timely renewal of those contracts.
I beg to differ with you. The Board Attorney's Office is responsible for monitoring, reviewing all contracts pertaining to Hines County and the Board of Supervisors. And the Board Attorney's Office is legally responsible for knowing what's in those contracts and making sure that we have contracts that will protect us and not just the ones.
Okay. That's the motion is that we approve the contract pending Mr. Stokes' amendment to make it 1 year.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Mr. President,
Mr. Stokes.
I would hope in the future, I know Dr. Walker, that parking lot on President and Pastor Rue, and I know the city on part of the county on parts of it. I think we can create a working relationship, get something done. I know with a year time, we'll have time to try to.
We've been working on it, and we need either you or Dr. Walker to help us with that. We've Mr. Brand and I tried to talk with, because they did have a guard over there at one particular point. We do need to try to see if we can work out an agreement between the county and the city as it relates, because the parking lot is not being utilized.
Yeah, okay. Because when they first did it some time ago, it was gonna be a working relationship and people could go to court and everything and park over there. And,
Right.
and we had security patrol it. When Tom was there, I know Tom left, he retired, but
Right.
that was all part of the agreement.
And we could probably save the county $2,000 in doing so, reaching that particular agreement. So it's something that we definitely need to look at.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
President.
thank you. Go ahead.
And Mr. President, we have 3 items for executive session today. And it's for the purposes of transacting, for strategy sessions or negotiations with prospective litigation, transaction of business regarding to the prospective purchase of land or sale of leasing lands, and also for transaction of business and discussions regarding employee or job performance.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll continue our printed agenda. We'll now go to Mr. Paul Felix. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Mr. Mark Young and Joey Perkins. At TLC. Good morning.
Good morning. Can I list all these under one, or do I need to do them individually?
I think we need to do them individually.
We request approval to accept on inventory the following vehicles and equipment. These items were allocated to the Mississippi Forestry Commission DOD firefighter program. There is no cost to the county for the vehicles or equipment instead.
Okay.
First item.
Go ahead.
First item is a 1984 Chevrolet 1.25 ton pickup truck for use as a brush fire truck for the Crossroads Volunteer Fire Department.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
1990 BMY 5-ton 6x6 cargo truck for use as a water tanker truck for the Crossroads Volunteer Fire Department.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
A 1991 BMY 5-ton 6x6 cargo truck for use as a water tanker truck for the Raymond Volunteer Fire Department.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
3 10 kW generators on skids to be used within the county fire service.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
1 60 kW trailer mounted generator to be used within the county fire service.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
And 1 400 GPM water pump on skid to be used within the county fire service.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's not going to cost us anything.
Not for the vehicle or equipment itself.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Hunter.
I got a question, Mr. Young. I had a constituent that lives on Rural House County out on Military Road, and they said that they didn't get an increase in insurance premium because of the volunteer fire department has lost their rating or rating went down or something like that. Can you help with that?
The ratings outside, that'll be closer to the city of Everett. Should be the West Hines Volunteer Fire Department. The ratings have not increased. They've always been a 10. What their insurance company is charging them more on their premium for that. We are working to lower the ratings in the county at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask you, Joey, isn't the ratings, is it the lower that they go, the better the ratings are?
1 is the best, 10 is, I guess, the worst.
It's the worst. Okay. So what would we have to do?
There's a process we go through with the Mississippi Rating Bureau. They come in and grade the fire department, they grade your water supply and your communications. So you have to come in and basically it's a test. They look at everything, they go back, and they'll give you a grade accordingly.
So what are you doing? What are your department doing to get this done?
We're working with the fire chiefs and the fire departments to make sure their records are up to date, that they have people to respond on calls, their equipment, their water shuttles. Water is our biggest hurdle in the county. If we had fire hydrants every 500 feet, I'd say we have nothing to worry about. But there is a test where you do have to flow, depending on whether you want a 9 or an 8 or a 7, a certain amount of water without stopping. And to do that, you have to have equipment to make that happen.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure that you get with Supervisor Hunter to make sure that we answer his questions as it relates to the rating, because 10...
It is something that we are working on.
Okay, well, let him know what we're working on, so in that respect. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, is there anything? Okay. We'll now go to the Honorable Ms. Eddie Jean Carr, Chancery Clerk, Vance County. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Freeman. I didn't see your item there. Before we go to Ms. Carr.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and other board members. At this time, I would like to table that item to be addressed during the budget process.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll go to Ms. Eddie Jean Carr.
Good afternoon, board members, and Mr. President. We are going to pass over item number 1. Item number 2, we have orders canceling tax sales, authorizing refund, reassessment changes to the assessment roll for your approval.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Mr. President,
Mr. Stokes?
I asked Mr. Stokes about a month ago concerning the road, and I mentioned some of the businesses that we know are closed that's still on the road. And those are projections when you look at the tax on. He says it does not exist. And one example I know of is Mr. Smooth stole down from Johnson School. So that's what I'm concerned about with our roads. And now we take things off here. How do we have a road that the projections are incorrect? That's money that cannot come into the county. They got to have a good, clean road. These businesses are closed, and been closed for years. They shouldn't be on our road.
It's well taken. Thank you.
Okay. The next item, item number 3, is objection hearings to the motor vehicle assessment schedule and approval of that. What we need the board to do is to open the hearing for objections. If there are no objections, then we'll approve the motor vehicle schedule.
Okay. We need a motion to open the public hearing. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Are there any objections to the motor vehicle schedule for 2013-2014?
There being no objections, I will move or ask that we have a motion to close it. It's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second. It's been moved and properly seconded that we close the public hearing. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Continue, please.
And now we ask that you approve the motor vehicle assessment schedule for 2013-2014.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We request approval of a resolution authorizing destruction of certain records pursuant to Section 9-5-171 Mississippi Code of 1972 and in accordance with the Records Control Schedule approved by the Local Government's Record Committee pursuant to Section 25-60-1 Mississippi Code of 1972.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And we also have a request approval of a resolution authorizing destruction of certain records pursuant to Section 9-5-171 of the Mississippi Code of 1972. These are homestead applications that are allowed to be destroyed at this time.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
I'm sorry, I missed the second.
Second by Supervisor Hyman.
Thank you very much. We have minute insertion as listed on your agenda. No action is required on your part.
Mr. President,
Okay.
on that minute insertion, Ms. Carr, could you speak to B to us, please?
Item B. That's the letter that we received from the state auditor's office allowing us to have a contract for our audit for the next 2 years. So we will be bringing before the request to go out for audit.
Okay. Would your office select who's going to do the audit, or would the board select?
The board will select.
We just do the paperwork to get it to the papers, and then we'll bring back before the board.
That's for 13 and 14.
Yes.
The reason I asked, Mr. President, again, I get griping about all these different bank accounts that everybody got in the county. And we don't know where the money, who got the money, and those kind of things. That's one reason we want to financial advisor. We can try to find all the money so we'll know the county's work and everything. Now, with this audit, are we just going to look at
This is your regular county audit that you have for the next 2 years.
Oh, the thing that Mr. Smith done been doing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. So I'm back to about all the accounts. How are we going to find out about all the different accounts?
Annually, between October 1st and October 31st, you are required by law, and on behalf of Mrs. Carr, I prepare a report to the state treasurer that lists every single account in the county that has funds as of September 30th of each fiscal year. What happens is when the departments that have bank accounts that are public funds related, they send a copy of their bank statement to Mrs. Carr's office, and we file that with their bank balance and their bank account and the use with the state treasurer's office, and that is done annually as required by law.
Can we
can't provide you.
Can we get, as women get for the last maybe 3 or 4 years, so we'll know.
Yes,
and this is one reason, Mr. President, I'm bringing this up. We bought some vehicles, I think about a month ago, for the sheriff's department. And now I found, and I asked Ms. Willis, there's supposed to be some seizure funds, almost $1 million, that could have been used for those vehicles. So I asked Ms. Willis about the account. She said they don't have it.
You know, it hadn't been closed to us yet, and I think what it is, it has to be go through the courts before it's sold to the county, and it has to be sold.
What kind of time frame?
Now, that may be
We can't tell you. We can only tell you once we receive it in the clerk's office.
right. It hasn't come to the clerk's office because the court hadn't sold it. So it has to stay with the sheriff until the court sells it.
So once it's settled, then we can start using that money to purchase these vehicles instead of the general fund, right?
Those seizure funds may be used for that purpose, yes.
If that's what the sheriff uses it for, they're going to seize funds for the sheriff to decide how he uses it correct.
Can we get a list of all these accounts here?
We will be happy to do that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Mrs. Calhoun.
I was just going to mention that the Chancery Clerk's office serves as the Board of Supervisors, internal auditor. The funds that the sheriff has used to purchase vehicles are funds that have been designated to his budget, allocated to his budget, and he's using his budget funds to purchase those vehicles.
Okay.
But what I'm saying, Mr. President, if we can use, because in my understanding, those seizure funds can only be used for training and equipment. So we shouldn't use general fund money for equipment where we can use seizure funds, especially got almost $1 million.
Right. One of the things we'll do is we want to give it to the board attorney as well to make sure we know exactly what. I think there was something that we tried to. We had a question about the seeds fund, and we also had a question about property that has been seized by the tax collector as to whether or not the board of supervisors has any responsibility as it relates to the property that's been seized. So those 2 things we need to make sure we have answered. Thank you very much. Board members, we'll now go back to the board attorney for request to go to executive session. First of all, we'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Now we'll need a motion to go.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second for the purpose of...
Second yet.
No, you can't second yet. I'm sorry. Second yet.
You're on the second.
But it's been moved and we're going to executive session for the purpose of...
For the purpose of transaction of business and discussion regarding the prospective purchase, sale, and leasing of lands,
for strategy sessions or negotiations with respect to prospective litigation, and also for the transaction of business and discussions regarding employment or job performance of a specific person.
Okay, now we need a second.
That's the 5269 issue.
Right.
Is that just?
That's it.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. We will now go to executive session at 12:14.